This episode is starting in just 10 seconds, but I want to let you know right now that you can comment anything at all down below here on YouTube, and one lucky person will win $200. You have to be subscribed to our channel, like this video, leave a comment, and a winner will be chosen by Thursday night. Good luck. This is my conversation with Rabbi Joey Haber. First thing I want to make clear is that Rabbi Haber has no idea what's about to happen, right?
Yes.
You came into the Lion's Den over here at Meaningful People, and you have no idea what's about to happen, but that's what makes it fun. So I'll tell you what I had in mind when I came over here today. Figured, okay, we could talk about Rabbi Haber's life. Cool, nice. Or I have an opportunity now to sit with Rabbi Joey Haber. We could talk about some of the biggest topics and issues that people have questions on. We opened up the forum to the Meaningful Minute Plus members, and we said, hey, if you have a question, send it in, and we'll try to ask it. So I want to break this up kind of into like three categories. I want to talk about money, finances, big topic right now in the Jewish world, always is. I want to talk about shidduchim and shalom bayis. And of course, we'll sprinkle in some questions throughout from our people. But just starting out about money, about finances. So there's a lot of questions that were sent in. But I think the biggest one that I think jumped out at me, and I think it's something that we maybe struggle with as a people right now, is at what point does hider mitzvah turn into materialism? Is there a point where, no, I'm doing it, it's a mitzvah to spend X, Y, and Z on X, Y, and Z, and it just got out of hand, and we're still doing that, and it's just not the mitzvah anymore?
So before I answer, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, I'm glad we're not talking about my life. It's boring. You can ask a few questions, but otherwise there's nothing really. I just grew up in both worlds, Syrian and Ashkenazi. That's pretty much the story. And I was born in Israel. I just gave you all the interesting parts.
Yeah, there we go.
I think the top three issues in the Jewish world today are two out of the three you mentioned. I think it's finances and all that comes along with it, shidduchim and all that comes along with that, and technology and whatever that's doing to people's lives.
Well, that might be some shalom bayis also.
So yeah, and I think shalom bayis is also a huge one, but I'd almost put that in tier 2,
right?
Because shalom bayis has always been a challenge. These are very modern, new.
Yeah,
in terms
I'm
of
sure
the level
we'll touch
of
upon technology as well.
So what's your question?
About
hider mitzvah.
Hider mitzvah, like even of course I think we could agree throwing a $35,000 kiddush, a 75. We can all cool heads could say. I don't know if that's...
My simple answer is a vast majority of it is not hider mitzvah. And now you have to be honest with yourself, but when you look in the mirror and you say, why am I doing this? And most people, the reason why they're doing most of these things is because of how they're going to be viewed. Now, when you say that, it just sounds so like, oh, everyone has an ego and everyone's showing off. It's not that everyone has an ego and everyone's showing off. When a person is successful, they like the world to know that they're successful. It's just human nature. There's very few people. If there's a Rosh Hashiva that gives a major shiur, somehow, I don't want to like belittle that. That sounds wrong. But anyone who has a successful yeshiva, you want people to know you're part of a successful yeshiva. Anyone who's successful likes their success to be known.
Yeah.
So for some people, the way their success is known is by a very expensive kiddush or by a very expensive wedding.
What about a beautiful, what about an esrog that is like, I don't know, a $10,000 esrog, and yeah,
that's an unrealistic case.
There's no such thing. I have no idea.
I don't know how many people do $10,000 esrog, but usually an expensive esrog goes from, instead of spending $75, a person will spend $300 or $400.
Is there an example that comes to mind for you, where especially as a rabbi, as a rav, where from your point of view you see some things that are maybe people are considering hider mitzvah, but really it's materialism? The low-hanging fruit is weddings, kiddushin. We know those things. Is there anything else?
Is there anything else that you would say people think they're doing hider mitzvah?
They think they're doing, I'm doing it. I'm doing the greatest thing right now. But really it's like, no, that's just materialism. That's not.
I think it's most things. I think it's, building a big house and saying it's going to have chesed events in my house. And I think those people are genuine. They really want to have chesed events in the house. They're good-hearted people. Mm-hmm. But deep down, if I told you, okay, so how about if you give the neighbor, one of my favorite stories, it's not the most powerful story in the world, but one of my favorite stories that resonates with me a lot and kind of reminds us where our head really is at, is there was a story of two bachrim were talking, and one bachar said, my Rosh, he was telling a Rebbe actually, said, my Rosh Hashiva is so l'shem shemayim. How do you know so l'shem shemayim? He says he loves Hashem so dearly. He says, how do you know? He says it was Shavuos night in our yeshiva. and there were 200 Bachram learning really, really well. And he was dancing in the aisle out of so much happiness for the Kavod Torah. So the Rebbe said to the Bachar, he says, if that's really about Hashem, let's see if he would do the same dance in someone else's yeshiva.
Right.
What does that mean? That means a Rosh Yeshiva built a yeshiva, for sure it's L'Shem Shemayim. It's for sure for teach Torah, to be marba Torah. Of course, that's what it's there for. But there's a lot of that comes in at what you do, that there's somewhat of your own agenda in almost anything. So I think we have to remind ourselves that even when we're doing things and we say it's Hiddur Mitzvah, and we say it's L'Shem Shemayim, we say it's really for Hashem, let's look in the mirror and say, honestly, if someone else was doing it, would you feel as excited? So when you're honest, when you say, I want to give all that money to someone else to make a house full of chesed, I'm giving that money to make my house full of chesed, then a lot of it really is about me.
So would you say that it's not the ideal for someone to build a lavish house or to be driving a really nice car? Obviously, you're supposed to, you're not supposed to live in this world. We're in Galus, right? But you don't necessarily need to live a proper lifestyle. But where's the balance?
So, well, you can't ask two questions. Is it not ideal? I think it's all relative. Meaning,
a lot of people
is it the worst thing in the world? No, it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, we all are guilty of it on some level.
Right.
So it's not like I could point a finger at someone else. I'm also guilty at sometimes. So I don't want to point it. Is it the most ideal? The most ideal is to really not care about all these things at all. But if you're going to care and you're going to be into it, at least use it for chesed, use it for good things. Because if you're really genuinely using what you have to really be there for others, you're in a beautiful spot. Is it better that you're not caring about these things at all? Yes. Is it better that even if you have it, your focus isn't it and your focus is on genuine ruchnius? Definitely much better that way. But I would say it's a very select few people that are able to put themselves really in that place. And sometimes the people that are very humble and make a small wedding is because everyone knows they're so wealthy that they don't need to prove it. But that's not humble humility either. You know what I'm saying? To have a person who really doesn't care about these things, can do it and doesn't care about it at all, is not so easy to find.
Okay, so a little bit of a challenge. I had a conversation last night with someone who's extremely wealthy, and we're talking about a couple of different topics, and it was like a fundraising call on my behalf, but we ended up talking about a few things. And something he had brought up is we're talking about finances in the frum community, how people are struggling, and the rabbis tell people in the community to tone it down, make smaller weddings. You saw during COVID, takana weddings, spend less and less and less. And then a big veer makes a wedding. He spends $500,000, and they're there dancing in the circle. I interviewed someone. I interviewed Shirley Razel. It's on YouTube. People know I asked this question because we spoke about this. And I asked him, would you be insulted if a Rav didn't come to your wedding if you spent a lot of money in the wedding? He said he wouldn't be. For a Rav or a rabbi to get up there and to preach about simplicity when it comes to chasanas and stuff like that, and then go to $1 million wedding, does that send mixed signals to the community?
People think it does, but I don't think it does. And I'll tell you why. Do you want that Rav to judge people?
No, I think everyone judges at some extent.
Do you want me to judge people? Do you want me to walk around and judge? You're good, you're not.
It's a very nuanced question.
So I think for the most part, you don't want people to judge people. So do I think as a concept, we should not be having extra lavish weddings? Yes. But if now someone has extra lavish wedding, who's a Baal Tzedakah, now I'm going to judge what he's doing. I'm talking about as a concept. I'm not going to point a finger at a person and say, how about if I talk about Lashon Hara and now I know someone who speaks Lashon Hara, like I'm not going to be friendly with that person. Like it's a little strong to say.
But if a rabbi,
was an A. And then B is, very often the Rav has a karsa type. Like he has the yeshiva, he has an organization, and that person gives to the organization. Even if he doesn't love what the person's doing, to not be appreciative of the person is straightforward, not nice. So yes, there are very often people that don't have the means that get very jaded very quickly and love to get annoyed and say, oh, it's hypocritical. It's not hypocritical. We talk about a topic. We hope people can work on that topic, but we're now not going to judge the people who are not great on that topic and say, now you're out. And I think that's really the balance.
I understand. I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate. My opinion is everyone should just mind their own business. Shirley Best wrote an article in Mishpacha. It was titled "If I Were a Rich Man." It was sort of along the lines of like, let rich people could do what they want. People who don't have money, you do what you want.
So you agree with me? Don't judge. So the point is, I might talk about a topic, and again, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, it's fine.
I might talk about a topic, and then I myself might not even be the greatest at the topic.
Right.
I would say I gave a speech a couple of weeks about, about materialism. I wouldn't say I'm the best. It's a topic. It's something worth talking about, but I'm not going to judge other people, and I'm not in how they do it. And I think that's important for people to realize. Just because I talk about a topic doesn't mean now I'm going to excommunicate, put in cherem anyone who doesn't uphold the level of the topic I'm talking about.
No, I understand that, and I would tend to agree with that. But just to push a little bit on this, if a Rav comes out or a Rebbe comes out against a certain food establishment, and then they are seen eating in that food establishment, you would agree that that's no good. That's hypocritical. So if a Rav or a Rebbe comes out against a certain type of behavior, throwing a certain type of wedding or a certain simcha, and they are there, and I understand Hakaras Tov, there are other ways to show Hakaras Tov, does that send mixed signals? Like, it could.
I think that when you're, it's a good question, but I think when you're against a certain food establishment, you're talking specifically about this place, that this place is unkosher or not kosher, whatever. It's not kosher because it's not the right environment, it's not kosher because it's not the right food. So if I go there, I'm literally going directly against my words. Over here, I'm talking more about, I'm not talking about specific, I'm talking about a concept. And I'm not saying that therefore any person who has that, we shouldn't buy nice cars. So now if someone has a nice car, I won't get a ride in the car. Like, it's not, I don't think it's very at all the same thing. If I said don't make weddings in that hall, and then I showed up at the hall, then I'd be hypocritical. But if I don't say don't make lavish weddings, and I think it's a waste of money to make lavish weddings, it doesn't mean to come to a person's chassan and celebrate their simcha. I'm not indulging. If I sat there indulging in eating 3 plates of lamb chops, then that would be like hypocritical. But if I'm just coming to celebrate the person's simcha, I'm not really endorsing everything about it. I'm just appreciating the person.
Okay. I mentioned this really Besser thing, so I just wanted to read a quote from the article, because I think this is spot on. He writes...
He usually is.
Yeah, he is. Stop being bitter about rich people. Find the areas in which you have and run with them. The 1%ers can't buy musical abilities, or they can't buy a good jump shot. They can't even buy great shalom bias. Find your wealth, whatever it is, wherever it is, and make sure your children know how rich they are. Money is one type of currency, is kind of what he's saying. Just because someone has wealth does not mean they have all the great things that you probably have. And this whole conversation about keeping up with the Joneses, I think that pops the balloon.
I think it's very true. Now, obviously, money takes up a lot of the conversation in a lot of people's minds. But I think what he's really right about is a lot of people talk about what they would do if they had.
I personally have said that.
And I would tell you, no one has any clue what they would do if they had. Because you would be in a whole different mindset. You might even have different friends, a different environment, different expectations, different pressures. So you might say, if I had a lot of money, I wouldn't go on a vacation. And then I might say to you, but you know what? If you had people standing outside your door, you had 10 collectors waiting every day to collect money from you, expecting huge numbers, you might every now and then say, I just got to get out of here. So it's hard for you to, just like a girl who's single has no clue what it feels like to be married. She's just dreaming about marriage, but doesn't know what it really is on the ground. And just like a person who, a boy who didn't have to get his driver's license has no idea what it's like to really drive. He's watching people drive his whole life. He doesn't know what it's really like in the car, in the driver's seat. To say you know what it's like to be in someone else's lifestyle, whether it's wealthier and the same thing goes the other way around. Sometimes there are people with wealth that look at people without means and they're judging them. And they're saying, why are you so bitter? And why are you begging so much? Or why don't you get a job? And that's also not fair. You have no clue what a person in a different context, in a different environment, in a different situation is dealing with. So to kind of say what I would do if I was there, usually you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Okay. So two other topics come to mind when you just spoke about this. One of them, we're turning up the heat a little bit in the office. Feel free to pass, talk about it, not talk about it. But last year, a lot of chashuv Rosh Hashivas, Rabbanim came from Eretz Yisrael to America to collect for Olam Torah $100 million. They're coming again, I think, this year as well to collect that same funds, very needed funds for the yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. Some people in America are like a little bit, hey, there's a lot of poverty here. We got a lot of issues here. We have a lot of mitzvahs to support here, and we're shipping off $100 million to the yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. Could you talk to that?
I can't give an opinion on it. I hear both sides.
You can't, or
I cannot.
Okay.
Because I hear both sides. very strongly. There's Aniyah Yercha and there's Aniyah Yitzhak.
Yeah.
Both of them take high priority. On the one hand, we get what, our yeshivas here around the corner need to stay strong. We need to, and they have, the people that in the community, in that specific community that could support those yeshivas need to. But at the same time, Torah of Eretz Yisrael is our nation. And if we don't keep our heart pumping, we could be in major trouble. So those that are saying to give a tremendous amount over there are really saying, keep the heart pumping, keep the Jewish nation going. And keeping the Jewish nation going is invaluable. So it definitely is tricky, because if I have a school and I have rebbeim that weren't paid, that are, let's say you're a person who could give $1 million there or $1 million here. And I have rebbeim of a school that weren't paid, that are behind on 3-4 months, and they're teaching your son and they live down the block. And I come to you and I say, can you give? And you say, oh, I'm sorry, I just gave it all to Eretz Yisrael. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Right.
I would say that most of the people that gave, I only know from the Syrian community standpoint, I don't know from the whole Jewish world, but a lot of the people that gave kind of stepped out to give. That means they said, if I normally give my meiser, I'm giving this from a separate realm. I'm giving this from a separate number. I don't want it to affect what I'm doing. And I think if people are capable, I think that's really what we want people to do. That people should, because this is an Eis Lasses Lashem, and this is a crazy, urgent situation. Like, you kind of, just like if all of a sudden your car breaks down, you need a new car, you're not taking it from meiser. This is almost like our car's breaking down, we need a new car. I think that should be the attitude that the people are giving should try and give with that mindset.
Big shout out to my friends at Bloom's. They are the official gum and food sponsor of Meaningful People. Our office is constantly stacked, and our guests thank them because it is a good time in our office. Thanks to Bloom's. We'll be right back to this episode in just a minute. A quick word from my friends at PZ Deals, because let me tell you, summer is here and there's so many things that you may want to buy. You want to get one of those nice slippy slides for your backyard, one of those sprinklers, maybe a new grill. Well, buying things can be expensive, but that is when you pay full price. Join the chevra. Join the club that doesn't pay full price anymore. I'm part of that club. My friends are part of that club. My family's part of that club because we use PZ Deals. Download the PZ Deals app right now. Google Play Store, App Store, wherever you get your apps. Download the PZ Deals app right now and never pay full price again. It's as easy as that. Take my word for it. That money you're saving goes a long way. Download the PZ Deals app today. Tavito.com. It's not just the place where your kids should be consuming content. It is the safest place. In just 3 clicks, kids can access inappropriate content. Here on YouTube, where you might be watching this episode, maybe it's okay for you, but how about your child? Can you trust them with this? 46% of parents out there say their kids have seen inappropriate videos. And I promise you, the one place they didn't see those videos is Tavito.com. 1 out of every 10 comments has hateful, threatening language online. That's not a Tavito problem. That's going on all these other platforms. That's why you and your family need Tavito.com. You're going to use promo code MM10. You'll save some money. But let's be real. Enough putting your children, your family at risk to this culture that's going on. Even simply browsing through YouTube, 50% of the thumbnails are scary, are pushing a certain agenda. So go ahead to Tavito.com today, make an account, maybe even go get that tablet for your children at Tavito.com. Tavito.com, the safest place, the safest way for your kids to consume kosher, entertaining content.
Do you think there's anything, I know you mentioned that you're, in the Syrian community, but you speak a lot and you're very much enmeshed in the Ashkenazi community as well. Do you think there's anything vis-a-vis money specifically that the Syrian community does that the Ashkenazi community can learn from, or vice versa?
That we do better?
I don't know what tuition costs in the Syrian community.
Maybe spend it?
You saying the Syrians spend better or they spend more? You guys go to deal in the summer. That's not cheap.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not cheap at all. What do we do better in regards to money than Ashkenazim do in regards to money?
And don't say make more, because come on,
I'm joking. That's it's not even true anymore.
Yeah.
It might have been true 20 years ago. It's not even true anymore. Both are making and both are not making, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That means both have. Is there something that
is tuition the same in the Syrian yeshivas than it is in Ashkenaz?
It's higher.
It's higher?
It depends. Again, our Syrian community has two parts of the community. There's what we call like the mainstream community, which are people that, we call it the prototypical Syrian.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a very yeshivish part of the Syrian community. The yeshivish part of the Syrian community, their tuition is very similar to the regular Ashkenazi community. The mainstream Syrian community is paying high tuition, very high.
25.
There are some schools that for high school could be like 35
Right.
or 40 even. So that's kind of high.
You have rice on Pesach, but you got to pay 35. It's a tough trade-off. I don't know.
Is there anything we're really doing better? There's nothing I could think of offhand. Again, we give a tremendous amount of tzedakah.
Yeah.
I think we support our community and our yeshivot in a really, really beautiful way. But this temptation to like lavish things, 95% of people have. That means some people are not in the sugya to do, but if they could be, they care about it also. So, no, I would say, if anything, we have more pressure of financial, like our, I wouldn't put a number to it, but what you would consider a baseline for a family of 2 parents and 4 or 5 kids, with a couple of kids in elementary school, a couple of kids in high school, our baseline necessary income is definitely higher than almost any Ashkenaz community.
You don't want to throw out a number.
I don't want to throw out a number because I don't want to. I mean, I could do the math if you want, and you
I did this with Shirley Razel. His number was a family of 4 or 5.
4 or 5 children.
Yeah, it was 300 or 350. Household 300. It was that's what he charged, Brendan. And that's with no luxuries, pre-tax, and you might not be able to pay tuition.
So
can't pay tuition at 300. He has people come to him and they can't pay tuition.
So again, I'll just do the thing. So let's say you have tuition, and let's put the tuition bill at $100,000 a year.
That's high for 4 kids.
For 4 kids in the mainstream Syrian community.
Yeah, that's 4 high school kids. Yeah, who's having? You're not having.
No. 2 kids in elementary, 2 kids in high school is about 100.
Are you really?
Did you want to say, are you crazy?
No, chasshal.
So I'm saying, so it's 100.
Maybe a different guest, but
and then your mortgage could be 80
times 2 deal.
And let's say you have times 2, so that's where are we at? 160 plus 100, we're at 260.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you didn't even talk about any
cars,
shabasim, yontovim,
housekeeper, food, camps.
You're easy over 500. Easy.
It could be over 500 net. I'm not saying the number. Let me be very clear.
You're not
serious listening to
disclaimer.
This. I'm really not saying a number.
Because you could.
What I'm saying is that the number is very high. You could do your own math. There's a lot of people. Now you want to know how it works. A lot of people, maybe their father helps them buy a house. Maybe they got a house in a cheaper neighborhood. Maybe they're not paying full tuition.
Right.
Like, I don't want to set this as if, that's the standard. In fact, the first time I said this in a speech when I was I actually did, I calculated the numbers and spoke in Sharet Zion and said the numbers, and a few people were annoyed, like, you're putting a lot of pressure on the crowd.
Right.
And the truth is, they're right, because there are so many ways. There's plenty of people who could be even married with kids and high school kids that stay by their parents' house and deal in the summer, so they don't pay for their house and deal. There's a lot of ways out of this number. I think the bigger lesson of this number is, and this is the lesson that I think young people should take out, is the Syrian community is a community of immigrants. We all got here. We didn't have much of an education. We got here from a foreign country in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and some of them even the 80s and the 90s. And if you look up the average income of immigrants, the number is very low. Okay, I don't know what it is, 40,000 a year or whatever. And somehow, I just told you the cost of living in the Syrian community, and somehow we went from being a community of immigrants to being able to have a lifestyle where people have houses and people send their kids to yeshiva, and almost everyone sends their kids to yeshiva. And so somehow, if you ask me, it's our lifestyle is a bigger miracle than the Nes Chanukah. The Nes Chanukah taking a little jug of oil and lasting 8 nights. The fact that we took this community of people and it turned into what it turned into is unbelievable. And the Ashkenaz community is the same. I'm just Syrian, so I'm telling you about Syrian. The Ashkenaz community is the same. The fact that there's so much success and there's so many people who can help and so many people who do help, and almost everybody is surviving. That means to say, yes, some people might have big credit card bills, but have you ever got an invitation to a chasana and they said, it was called off because they couldn't pay?
Right, but they're borrowing a lot of money.
I know. I'm not saying they're surviving easily. I'm saying, but almost everyone is finding a way to get through.
Is that commendable?
No, I'm not saying it's the best. I wish we could have cheaper weddings. I'm not taking back what I said before, but I'm just saying what our existence, we need to realize as a community, our existence, and not just as a Syrian community, as a Jewish community, our existence is a miracle.
So don't even do the math because it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. So when you have a young person who's learning in Kollel, a young person getting married, and they're working right away, and they're like, how am I ever going to pay tuition? How am I ever going to have a house? How am I ever going to send my kids? Whatever the numbers are, if it's 3, if it's 5, if it's 2, if it's 1, if it's, they're going to say, how am I going to get there? The answer is, you're going to need a nace. And so did your father, and so did your grandfather, and so did your uncle, and so did your brother. And Hashem does plenty of nisim.
A big conversation we had on Pesach with Bordeaux, one of the panels that got really heated was the topic of Kollel. And something was suggested in the crowd, and this I'll let you react, is that should the Kollel lifestyle be for 2 types of people? Very, very wealthy, or someone who's willing to absolutely slum it?
So, okay, one second. Well, let me first talk about whether it's irresponsible or not. And then you get back. Remember the Kollel question.
I remember.
Before, I think we had 2 questions. I only answered 1. Remember the Kollel question. Okay, I want to first respond to the irresponsible.
Okay. You understand why? Why?
Yeah, of course.
I don't think it's irresponsible.
Let me get
Some would say.
Yes. So let me get to the irresponsible. To come into a marriage reckless is irresponsible. To just say, how are you going to do it? No, Hashem, that is irresponsible. But you don't have to have mapped out the next 20 years in order to get married.
Okay.
So now you get married, and let's say a person is going to be in Kollel or they're working, and they say, okay, what it looks like from our rent and for our this is going to cost us $70,000 a year. Let's say I'm making up that number. And he's bringing in, if he's working or if he's learning, he's bringing in this. She's working or she's not working, she's bringing in that. The parents are willing to help that. And collectively, through all 3 different forms of income, we got 70. If we have that plan and we're in a position where one day it could turn into a little more, maybe she could get a raise, maybe the in-laws could help a little more, that's good enough to get married. To think that you're going to map out your whole future, most people that map out their whole future get it thrown in their face. And most people, and I said this to many young Syrian boys because we work with young adult boys a lot and girls, whatever, 2 different divisions, boys division, girls division, now organization called Kosher. I say this a lot. Go to your father. You think your father had a game plan exactly how this is going to work? You think your uncle had a game plan? They knew how they was getting started. And then you're going to turn around and look at Hashem and say, Hashem, how are you going to make this happen? So I think that's what responsible looks like. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as Kollel lifestyle, do I think that that's what Kollel was, the way you described, either the very wealthy or the people that are willing to sacrifice everything? I think it was that way many years ago, maybe back in Europe, maybe it was that way back in the Middle Eastern countries. People designated their whole life with that, their whole life to Torah. But I don't think it is that way today, and nor do I think it should be that way. I think any person who has a cheshek for learning has a right to dedicate a few years at least to learning. And if you have, let's say you have someone who really loves learning Torah and teaching Torah and is going to give over Torah and wants to live a Torah life, but they're not willing to, drive one, 2002 Camry.
Yeah.
And that's it. They want to have a little bit. If they can do it, why do they not have the right to do it? So I don't think anyone has the right to decide who should be in Kollel, who should not be in Kollel.
Well, if they can do it, a lot of time is tully on being supported by Ashkenazi and communities, right? They're supporting these boys. I want to just frame it a little bit. Like, people joke about this, but there's truth to every joke. The second Elon Musk started doing Doge in the government, people started saying they should be Kosher for Kollel. If a guy is not, in fact, meaning attendance, are you learning a test? Are you showing up? Are you excelling? Or are you wasting time?
Well,
if you're wasting time, you're wasting money.
I want to do Kosher for every business also, because there's a lot of people.
But those are private companies.
I think, but there's a lot of people that are working that also they don't show up on time, and they also not.
And
really
they get fired, and they'll get fired.
And you know what? Most Kollel, the guy doesn't last that long if he's really not learning. There might be a very small percentage of people that are hanging on for a lot of years.
Okay.
Most people, again, I learned the Laker for a lot of years, and I want to make it clear. The reason why people go to Kollel is not just because one day they're going to be Rabbanim or Magid Yeshiurim. They go to Kollel because they want to start their life in Torah. And the world that we're in, and the distractions that we have, and the temptations that we have, I think everyone has that right. Is it the ultimate? If they're not willing to sacrifice to the ultimate? No, there might be a higher level, the old school Kollel might have been a higher level than the modern Kollel, but people are designating that, even they're committing to a few years or even more than that to learn. I think that's only admirable. I learned in Lakewood for a decade.
Wow.
Okay.
Kollel.
And in Lakewood Kollel for a decade. After I got married. And I would say that you go to everyday first Seder. Yes, is the average first Seder start a little later than the starting time? Yes, because the way the play groups are set up is that it's not possible to come exactly on time. But if you go to BMG, you go to Beis Medrash at 10:05 every day, it's jammed. There's not 100 people in the coffee room like some people want to say.
Right.
There's not 1,000 people hanging outside smoking cigarettes. It's not true. A vast, vast majority, probably a higher percentage than in almost any other sort of collection of people, are really carrying their weight. In fact, I'll give you a little example. So I used to be very involved in Magen David Yeshiva. So I took a group of boys. These are relatively minor boys. I brought them to visit Lakewood. And they spent the day in Lakewood. They had a phenomenal day. And I brought them to the yeshiva. So I brought them to, I said, you know what, boys, you want to see the best view? Take your Beis Yitzchak. That's one of the newer Batei Midrash, whatever, maybe it was built 10 years ago. And I'm going to take you to the second floor. And you're going to look down at the Beis Midrash. Okay? And I took these boys, 20 boys that are all about 16, and I brought them to the second floor overlooking the Beis Midrash. Beis Yitzchak has about 1,000 Jungalite learning in the Beis Midrash. And they looked down, and they were all looking down. And then one of them, I think I commented to them, I said, boys, check to see if any of them have a phone in their hand. It's 1,000 people, almost all of them married, all learning one Beis Midrash, and no one's looking down at their phone. If you want to know where we should doge or koj or boj, whatever you want to call the word, go to every business in the world and find people that are looking at fantasy football for half the day, and people that are watching replays from last night half the day, and people that are talking about Trump all day. And I will show you that from a percentage standpoint, the Kollelim have a very, very high percentage of productivity. So that's my stance.
And this is something that was brought up.
And before I answer this question, I'm sorry, cutting you off. I just want to say this to the point. If someone was saying, like, part of your question was, but using community money. Well, you could decide what you want to give to. No one's telling you what you have to give to. And I think this is also important for when you said before about the rabbis coming from Israel. I think when we act like the money is limited, we're playing God.
Right.
There's a Hashem here, and he runs the world, and he gives the money. And if we understand that, and we give our money for the right reason and do our best, Hashem figures out the rest. So to say, if the Kollel people that could have gotten a job, they could have gotten a job, if we're going to support them, then there might be a sudden. No, the person who doesn't have clothes. No. You take your money, you take your ma'aseh, you take your chaimish, give it the best way you see fit, and Hashem will take care of the person who finds clothes. My job is not to make sure he has clothes. My job is to give my money as best I can.
It's almost funny. You're saying it as if the people who are giving these sums of money think that it makes sense that they made this money to begin with.
Right, exactly.
Like it adds up. It doesn't add up.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm telling you. Every single person that has
a miracle.
Finances is a miracle. There's no, if you would read a book, if you read an average person of your kind of background, you didn't go to college, average income, you look at the average income, look at what you have, it does not make sense. So stop acting like it does. It comes from Hashem. It's clear that it comes from Hashem. And if it comes from Hashem, when you give it, act like you're giving it from Hashem to Hashem. And Hashem will decide how to take care of people.
And for those who don't make and they struggle, this same thing would apply.
What do you mean?
That also comes from Hashem.
Yes, and the truth is that I think the challenge with the struggle, I don't know if you want to go there, but the challenge with the struggle is partly physical. That means there's certain things that I can't do.
Right.
Like I wanted to get a new car and I can't. So there's a physical struggle. But I think the struggle much bigger is emotional. It's like, why can't I do it? Why can't I make it?
Like, what am I doing?
I'm
doing
not succeeding.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me. And that approach is a mistake. Because just as much as that person who does well is from Hashem, when someone's struggling, it's also Hashem's decision. So you have to just step back and say, what does Hashem want from me right here? He wants, for some reason, I'm in this struggle. Either there's something I'm going to grow from this struggle to get me out of it, or Hashem wants a certain thing out of me in this position. Just as much as that person's Hashem, that person's Hashem. Don't get too crazy over the person that has financially successful, and don't get too down on not being financially successful. There's not really a difference. You know, it's funny, you were talking to Yisrael Besser. You're talking about Yisrael Besser. Yeah. So we've gotten close, and we had a conversation the other night. Mitzvah Hashem, writing a book about my father, lavish shalom.
Yeah.
So that'd probably take about a year to come out. So we were talking about some different things, and we started comparing notes of what it's like. So I said, I went to speak somewhere. He was talking about what it's like and how he's thankful. He gets a million requests for books and how he handles it and whatever. So, and he kind of was talking about like he has a very understated way of approaching the whole thing. I'm thankful to Hashem that I do this. I'm doing what I could do, and that's it. And I'm thankful I'm in the position. But with very, I would say, appropriate humility. Some humility is like overdone and like, come on, who are you fooling? It was appropriate humility. I said, it's funny because I have a similar feeling. I said, I went to speak somewhere in Muncie the other day, and I walked in, and someone said, oh, wow, he just like walked in like regular people. And I said, like, how do you want me to walk in? You want me to walk in with 6 henchmen? You want me to walk in standing on stilts? Like, the way I look at it is, there's a guy in the room who's the photographer. There's another person who's gonna, there's another person who's serving the kugel. There's another person who's fixing the electric, or someone's fixing the electric. And my kugel is my speech. So maybe my speech gets a little more fanfare than that guy's kugel, but I'm not bringing any more than that person is. I don't think that Hashem gave me this ability to speak as if like I did something. I worked hard, but I look at it as just a miracle. It's just him. So I think if I ever, sometimes I have a little thought like to look at someone else and say, oh, wow, I feel bad for that person. When I feel bad, I get upset at myself. You feel bad as if that person is less than you, like, and you're some whole great person to feel bad for small people. We're all in this together and we're all the same. And so my advice and my word to a person who is struggling is, it's from Hashem too. Figure out what Hashem wants you in this position. Maybe you're displaying emunah that other people that have financial flexibility can't. Maybe your ability to give, even when it's a struggle, is your test. Maybe your ability to maintain a shalom bayis and raise your children is your test. Maybe you're giving your children strength that the wealthier person can't do, because through sacrifice, you're still raising a beautiful family. Yeah. I didn't grow up with a lot, and I'm very thankful that I didn't. And I would ask all my siblings, they would say the same thing. Like, we're very thankful. We grew up in a simple life. We were not needy, but it was simple. And we love the simplicity. The simplicity gives a little more of a hunger. The simplicity gives you more of a determination. The simplicity makes your expectations lower. So each position that a person's in, every single person has to just view themselves when they walk into the room that they're just serving kugel. The question is just which kind of kugel.
I love that.
We'll be right back to this episode in just a minute. A quick word from my friends at Growtha. Yes, because maybe you work for a law firm. Maybe you own a law firm. Maybe you're in healthcare. Maybe you run a dental clinic or many other businesses. And you know what's so important? What's so important is being able to generate leads, not just traffic to your website, but good traffic, meaningful traffic, leads for people who are going to hire you for your services, because you didn't get into this business just sit back and do nothing. You came here into this business to be busy. And that's exactly what Growtha does. They make businesses busy. You want to rank number 1 on Google? Growtha are the people you need to work with. Now, what does that even mean? Well, how about this? Let's say you own a dental clinic or a law firm or a healthcare facility in Muncie, New York. And someone goes on Google and they write, looking for dental clinic in Muncie, New York. Got a root canal, need a place to go. Who's going to show up number 1 on Google? You think it's random? You think they just choose whoever they're best friends with? No. It's whoever has optimized SEO. And guess who does that? Growtha. Head to growtha.com right now. Get in touch with my friend Josh, and you will show up number 1 on Google, because that's how business gets done. He's been doing this for a while, and he is quite successful at it. So if you're ready to level up your business, if you're ready to get even busier, reach out to growtha.com today. Get ready. It's about to be busy. Do you want to grow your business while cutting costs? The answer to that is yes. Do you want to save maybe 50% on payroll? I'm talking no office space, no overhead, no benefits. Yes. Well, Superior CS Group is here for you. The foreign employees that can be working for your company. We're talking healthcare, e-commerce, construction, real estate. Superior CS Group doesn't only just give you an employee, they give you a case manager to make sure that this employee is working well for you. There's really no downside. These are good, vetted employees that can be working for your company. You will see the results of having an employee from Superior CS Group, and you will see your bottom line getting a lot nicer looking. That's called saving money. You know, most clients of theirs see an ROI within 30 to 60 days. So my advice, try them out. Scale smarter, perform better, and pay less. Hit the link in the show notes below to get in touch with Superior CS Group right now.
I want to close parentheses on money with shidduch with the last thing, and I want to spend a very short amount of time on this, is because this came up over Pesach, and it was a lot of different opinions. Does a Kollel family, the young couple that's in Kollel, do they have, for lack of a better term, the right to, during Bein Hazmanim, go on lavish trips such as Bahamas, Cancun, Rome, or is that not befitting of a family that is devoting their life to Torah study?
So I think there's two parts to this question. Part number one is it appropriate from a financial standpoint? Does it make sense for them to spend that kind of money when they're living a Kollel life?
Okay.
And then the second question is it like appropriate? Does like a match? Like you're claiming you're one person and now you're being a different person. So am I right that there's two questions?
I agree with the first part. No, I agree with the first. I agree with your assessment that there's two parts to it. The first part I understand. The second part, not that they're. Someone has a right to. Bahamas is a beautiful country. You can go and be very frum and still be in the Bahamas. But you're not going to see. You're not going to see Rabbi Feinstein in the Bahamas, right? Like you're not going to see a chashuv Rosh Yeshiva or a chashuv Rebbe or anyone in these places. And if you're in Kollel, you're in a field.
So you represent something, and now you're misrepresenting what you're part of.
Potentially.
So let's first answer the first part of the question. I think the first part of the question very much depends. Like it has to fit from all the places you're getting your income. That means if you're getting a Kollel check and you have in-laws that are supporting and happy to support, and they're not checking where you're spending it on, because some in-laws are supporting and like they're kind of eyeing, do they really need the money?
Yeah.
But let's say you have in-laws that they're comfortable. They give you a certain amount every month and they're comfortable doing it and they don't care. And your wife makes a certain amount of money and maybe you make money somehow on the side or whatever, or let's say you don't. At the end of the day, within your lifestyle, you can make it work. I don't think you have to you don't have to explain it to the world why you could do this financially. Like, let's say you're doing it on points.
100%.
And you have to do it. So I don't think the financial thing is a thing unless one of these partners has, it sort of has a complaint. Like if the Kollel is giving you, it's an out-of-town Kollel is giving a few thousand a month and they can't expect you to live a certain way, then there might come strings attached. But
if you're getting from a Divrei Torah and then you're going to the Bahamas, like.
No, but I'm saying if you're getting a Divrei Torah $1,000, I don't think there's much strings attached on $1,000.
I don't think you can do much with that either.
I understand that. I'm saying if your wife happens to make a lot of money or your father-in-law doesn't, so that's that.
Okay.
As far as going to these more lavish vacations, which is I think a harder question, is are you misrepresenting Torah? Is that, I think that's a hard, difficult question. Let me just say before, when I started, after I left Kollel, I don't want to say left Kollel, I still consider myself in Kollel, like I was learning all morning this morning. But once I started to do more, I started to sometimes go to some of these places. And the reason is I sometimes need a vacation. Maybe it's once a year. But
you speak there.
And no, not going to speak. There's no excuse. This is not.
You mean Bahamar doesn't have a.
No, I never went to Bahamas.
But doesn't have a.
But my point is, let's say I decide that I want a vacation.
Yeah.
And I want to take a break. To me, okay, so where's the break? Florida. Florida is not really a break to me. You're going there, you're seeing people.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you're going to be asked to speak in 5 minutes.
You're still on, yeah.
Right, you're very much on. So I like to sometimes go to places that I don't have to feel like I'm on. So I've sometimes gone to some of these places. So I want to make sure I'm clear and not disingenuous, So that's clear. That being said, I think there are some of these places that are just a better way to relax. And then there are some of these places that are about overindulgence in gashmias and the world. So if you're going to a place that's just a better way to relax, so again, just like you're not going to have a time about a person going to Florida. If a person wants to spend $4,000 on a trip to Florida, they might spend $5,000 on a place that they could relax a little better. I don't know if it's necessarily a contradiction. There's a lot of yeshivish families that wouldn't do that, but I don't understand if it's necessarily a contradiction. But if you're going to a place where it's a very indulgence, you're going to Rome and it's all about shopping and all that stuff, and it has, the Rome, I don't know if you know Rome, it's got a lot of statues and cross, like it's a different vibe. Yeah. Then that might be a little bit more of a conflict. But I want to add one more point. Another point is because like Kollel, like I said, has expanded today. There's a lot of different Kollel. So not every person that's in Kollel represents Kollel exactly the same way. And those people also have a place. And the reason they have a place is that might be a person who's going to learn a Kollel for 3 years, and then he's going to go to work, totally fully planning going to work. But he's learning Kollel for 3 years because he wants to start off his life with Torah. So he doesn't claim to be, the next 12th grade Maggid Shir. He claims to be a person who's going to be a businessman, but he wants to start with a Torah foundation. I don't know if that person has to have the same sense as someone
the last thing on this topic before we move on is, should every Rosh Yeshiva, should every yeshiva make it the lichatchila for our boys? After you should go to Kollel 100%, no matter what type of boy he is, no matter if he has his flesh, no matter his financial standing. Go to Kollel. 100% of the people should go to Kollel.
So I think in the regular, the mainstream yeshivish world, that's considered the standard because of the reason that I just said. So that people start off their life with Torah, they start off their life with learning, they put themselves in the right head.
And there's value to that.
And there's a value to that. But there are people who can't do it. And we can't forget about the fact that a person who wakes up in the morning and davens Shacharis and davens 3 times a day and is kaveh itin l'Torah and lives a full life, we can't lose sight of the fact that if that person works, that is the way the common Jew is supposed to. It's not b'diavad. That is how a person is supposed to be or allowed to be. I don't know. I'm saying that's the way the world was created. So, and that's how Hashem created the world. It says, you work. So, the fact, I don't think that person should feel guilty. I think if that person is in that position and they need to be in that position, whether it's from a financial standpoint, because it's his place or because they're appreciated, they should be empowered to live that life in a Torah-dic life. And what happens a lot of times is because the standard is to go learn and they didn't hit that standard, they feel less than. And when they feel less than, they don't even act like a real Ben Torah, which they could and they should. So I think that is we have a standard. We want to maintain that standard so that people are inspired to start their life really of Torah and have that kind of home. But if someone can't, they're not bad and they're not off.
We'll be right back to this episode in just a second. A quick word, my friends, at Lalechet. Yeah, you see their ads everywhere, no? Like, anytime you're thinking of travel, Lalechet is the number one thing you need to think about. Can they make my life easier? Can they get me to the place I need to go? Can they give me an experience that I never had before? Then, of course, they have Lalechet Select. You can go on these trips to see the things, the sites with the holiest people that you've never even thought about. Go with Rabbi Daniel Klatstein and go to the Kfarim you always wanted to learn more about and get more history on. Go with Rabbi Slavion Grice Wolf. Go to these sites and have a trip that you are never going to forget. That's Lalechet Select. But even lalechet.com, you might be thinking, guys, let's go on a trip. Let's go to Poland. We never visit the camps. Let's go as a kahila. Let's go together. Maybe let's go to Karastir. Maybe let's go, maybe you stem from Morocco. I don't know. Maybe your family history goes back to Morocco. You want to plan a trip to Morocco. You don't need to become a travel agent. You need to just work with the right people. And Lalechet are the right people. Head to lalechet.com right now. lalechet.com right now and get in touch with them. You will be happy that you did and have a safe trip. Is this an episode of Meaningful People if I don't talk about Kollel Chabad? Because giving tzedakah never became easier. It never became more awesome. Anytime I'm going somewhere, and I've been traveling a lot lately, going to shoot some new things because we're working on a movie for Meaningful Minute, for Tisha B'Av, for Shavas Tammuz. And every time I get into the car, anytime I get on a plane, cha-ching, cha-ching, I'm going to the Kollel Chabad app. Let me hear that sound surly. Yeah, drop that noise. I'm going to the Kollel Chabad app and I'm giving tzedakah. Right here on my phone is a pushka. This is revolutionary. These are things I've never been done before. And Kollel Chabad has done it. An incredible organization that is helping feed hundreds of thousands of people every single year. Kollel Chabad is doing amazing things. And download their pushka app today to be part of that. Pushka.cc/meaningful. That is pushka.cc/meaningful. Hit the link down below in the show notes. Download the app today and give a little tzedakah.
Perfect segue into shidduchim. Okay. This is Hashem made this right here. A lot of girls are told in seminary. Most recently, I saw a LinkedIn post that described this specifically, that girls are given, sort of certain talking points of what to say they're looking for when they're leaving seminary in those last few weeks. I don't know if it's true or not. I never went to seminary, They're being told, supposedly, reportedly, that you need to marry a boy that's going to learn for 3 to 5 years. That's the 3 to 5 year learner. And let's just go down that path. Every girl's coming out of seminary saying, I want a 3 to 5 year learner, which then is requiring even a boy that really, is he a Kollel guy? He's a good guy. We kavayit him. He's at a daven. But his mind is in business. And we need Yisachar and Zvulun. We need both. It's making that boy try to pretend to be something he's not. And it's almost like the seminaries and yeshivas are not communicating. They're saying 3 to 5 years to even get someone who's from. And if you're not going to, I know someone who, they told me firsthand, and they were leaving seminary, they were told, if you're going to get a boy that's working, you think that's the type of boy you want to raise a family with? And that can't be the right approach to this.
So what's your question?
My question is, should girls be coming out of seminary and going into shidduchim, all of them, with the focus, again, the mainstream called the yeshiva world, I'm looking for a learning boy?
So let me start with this. There's the world works with stereotypes. We shouldn't stereotype, but that is how we work with stereotypes. We judge people by the clothing they wear. We judge people by where they live. We do judge. So we judge groups by what the group does. There's an assumption, whether it's fair or not, that if a person is a ben Torah on any level, he's starting off with learning. So what they're trying to tell their girls is, you want a ben Torah. You want a ben Torah. I don't know if I say Sephardi, Ashkenazi. You want a ben Torah.
If you're in the Syrian community, you don't understand. It's ben Torah.
Ben Torah. Okay, good. So if you want a ben Torah, if you want a ben Torah, right now the definition of a ben Torah is stereotyped by being learning in Kollel at least 3 to 5 years. So the teachers are trying to give the girls a clue of where you're going to find that ben Torah. Now, is it necessarily true? No, because there could be some people that are working right away and they're kavayit and they're beautiful people. But the teachers are using it as a stereotype in order to sort of point them in a general direction. So should they, shouldn't they? I don't know. This is how we judge people. We judge people by stereotyping, and it's sort of an easy way for a teacher to point to a girl about where direction to go. It happens to be partly because of all this that the reality is right now that most people that plan on being B'nai Torah do want to learn for a little bit, at least. Most people do. So therefore, if you're not, you may be the exception, but it's hard to necessarily explain it to a full seminary. By the way, there's also exceptions. Should they mention that, by the way, there's also exceptions? Maybe they should. But they're kind of giving the girls a general direction. A real Ben Torah, most of them are starting with some level of learning.
I hear. That's a very dangerous... It's a very dangerous thing to put out there, though, because there are a lot of very, very good boys out there that they plan to learn the rest of their lives, right? Not 3 to 5 years,
right?
But they're going to learn the rest of their lives a little bit every single day, or whatever they can allow, but make a career and be able to take care of their families and to be able to give to the community, and that shouldn't be tainted. That shouldn't be looked at as
it's not looked at. It's just there's a generalization. It's not fair that it is that way, but there's a generalization. Most people that are wearing orange shoes are not yeshivish. You might have some people with orange shoes.
Why is going to work consider wearing orange shoes?
Agreed. It's not, but
going to work is a responsible thing to do.
Yes, agreed. Again, the way I would say it is the way you asked me before is Kollel for everybody, and I said that we're trying to make that as a standard for people so that they view Torah as the main focus, as the main thing, as standard for people in the yeshiva world. I'm not talking about, there might be parts of the Syrian community where it's not the standard. I'm not talking to that. But in the yeshiva world, we might be trying to make that a standard. But at the same time, we have to make people realize that there's a very valuable exception. If I was talking to a seminary, I would want to articulate the same thing. You want to try to build your house as much of Torah as possible. If it could be 10 years, 10 years. It could be 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And if it can't be that way, you may be able to find the true Ben Torah the other way.
But even the way that you said that right there, if I'm a girl, I'm scared of that. It's sort of like we don't have the best product in stock or the second the best product, but we have the third the best product in stock.
So I know that. I don't mean it that way. Again,
no,
stereotyping is part of the reality. Right. But because the world functions based on that stereotyping, so most people that want to be B'nai Torah are going to be learning for a few years. So if you're not, there is a little question, why are you not?
But let's say someone doesn't have the ability.
Again,
The same way a guy in Kollel doesn't have the ability to make $1 million a year or $5 million a year. This guy, he's a good kid. He's a ben Torah. He loves to do chesed and everything. Look at Hatzalah members. Not every Hatzalah member can sit down and learn for 10 hours a day, right? But we know they can do other things. They can do chesed. Not every guy in Satmar who's filling up rooms and with Bikur Cholim can sit and learn every single day. But just because, like, we should not be devaluing any other part.
I agree.
And that's not even Chas Shalom what you're saying today. It's a generalization.
But I agree with the point that we should be helping people find quality and not be working with as much stereotypes. I was just explaining why it's done that way.
Right.
It shouldn't be working that way. And in fact, I want to say something, and this is not really a question, but it kind of triggered this point. What I do think we don't do enough job of in the Kollel lifestyle, and it kind of leads to shidduchim, they kind of go together in this way, is we train a lot of people how many years they're going to learn. But we don't train people enough in how to have a lifetime of learning. So most bachur, when they're in yeshiva, and the yeshiva is trying to push, you're going to go learn in Kollel, you're going to learn, you're going to have she'ifas, that's a big word, she'ifas, you're going to have aspirations to do great things. And it's pretty much push yourself as long as you can. And now, what happens the day after you leave?
Right.
There's no game plan. So what ends up happening is maybe there are a lot of people who leave Kollel and then 5 years they barely learn until they get caught on to one popular Daf Yomi Shir. But they don't really know how to transition. And I wish that we could train people how to transition, even people that are in Klei Kodesh. How do you transition from being a ben Torah this way, where you're learning 3 starim a day and maybe even more, to being a ben Torah that way, where you're working half a day or you're working a whole day or you're teaching half a day? How do you be a ben Torah that way too? And there's tools and there's just certain concepts. Maybe there's svarim to buy, maybe there's chaburas to join. But it almost should be a prerequisite that when someone decides they're leaving, most people decide they're leaving, they say, oh, you know what? Either I don't have any zip place or I don't have any money, so I'm leaving. And that's it. They just think about their job. But they don't think about the whole package. Which shul am I going to be a part of? Which chabura am I going to be a part of? Which group am I going to be a part of? Who's going to be my rav? How am I going to learn every day? How am I going to keep steiging every day? And the truth is, you could have a boy who went in Kollel for 2 years and then goes out to work and hasn't cracked a book barely for years after that. You could have another boy who was working from before he got married, but he was a true ben Torah, and he has a rav, and he has a chabur, and he has the group that he's learning with, and he has something he's accomplishing, he's learning, and he's growing, and he's incredible ben Torah for 100 years. So that definitely is a possibility, and we should be encouraging people to know how to be a businessman ben Torah also, because for most people, a majority of their adult life is going to be working.
Yeah.
That's the reality. They need to know how to do that and do it well.
100%. What do you think are some of the biggest questions you get or conversations you have to have regarding shidduchim nowadays in 2025?
Questions you get. I'm not sure how to respond to that. I mean, you get everything. Like everyone's everything. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to find a boy.
People are scared.
People are scared. People are nervous. People are losing it. People are giving up. People are frustrated. People are down. People are judging themselves. People are judging their families. Every person, when they get into the parsha, if they're in the parsha 6 months and their daughter's not engaged yet, they are second guessing everything about their life. They're starting to look, 1 second, is there something wrong with my yichus? Is there something wrong with my income? Maybe I wear the wrong clothing to shul. Maybe I don't fit the right stereotype. Maybe I have a funny reputation I didn't know about. People get so insecure and so down and so nervous. And most people think it's like them. Like maybe they're doing something wrong as a parent, or doing something wrong as a family, or maybe they're not wealthy enough, or not important enough, or not chashuv enough, or not learning enough. It's not. It's just, this is the nisayon of our generation right now. Our generation has this problem where you go to so many houses and there are older girls that are nervous and worried. So the main, I would say, question you get is A, everyone just wants a boy. And then B is a strong sense of nervousness and self-doubt.
Yeah. You know, one of the podcasts that's under my network is Stories of Hope with Tzipora Greco. They record in here. The word shidduch crisis is like a 4-letter word. We don't say that. It's the crisis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world.
Right.
You know, we don't say there's when people are getting sick, oh, it's a health crisis. No, Hashem runs the world. Refuah, everything. That being said, someone brought up a great question on Pesach when we had this question with a panel. They said, when did the shidduch crisis start? When did it start?
I have no idea.
So you could
It's just getting worse.
agree or disagree. I think that media created the shidduch crisis. Numbers wise, the OU just did a survey, a poll, repository. 92% of people gonna get married, no problem. I think it was even more higher than 92%. A small percentage are gonna struggle a little bit.
What's up? Are you denying the fact that there are a lot of girls that are
I'm not
in the age of getting married and they're not married?
I'm not denying the fact that there are girls that are. What are you saying? Older? Are you saying like?
There are a lot of girls. I don't want to put an age because I don't want to make an age that's older. Let's say over 15 is older, okay? Because it's obviously not. So I'm just
well, now the Goyim are going to come to this. Let's just go crazy.
Oh, okay, good. So let's use over 35 as older, okay?
I understand what you're saying.
Are you going to agree that there's a lot of people over that threshold age that are struggling?
According to the survey from the OU, and I encourage people to read it, that is not. It's not in a crisis level.
I didn't read the survey, and I'm curious too. But my assumption of the survey is that eventually they get married. I don't know if it's so. If a person wanted to get married at 20, they might eventually get married at 30. Those 10 years are rough.
No, 100%. No, 100%. And I think it's always been like this. Is what I'm saying. This is not. There's nothing new under the sun. But who called it? Who created this? This is nothing less than fear mongering. Do you agree or disagree? Calling this a shidduch crisis.
I do think there are a lot of people struggling. I don't think this is a media creation. I think there are a lot of people struggling. On the ground, there are a lot of people that are frustrated with their process. Was it less frustrating 50 years ago? I don't know. Maybe it was less because it was just fewer people. So if you say it's 10 out of every 100 that are struggling, if 50 years ago we had 100 people, we had only 10 people struggling. Today we have 1,000 people, we have 100 people.
There are people who are struggling and frustrated with the process who get married at 20 and get married at 21.
It's true.
But
there's a lot of people that are older than that.
But that's a man-made machla, though. That's a man-made problem that we created. That someone who's 21, they're holding their breath.
That's why I didn't use the number because I don't think over 20 is older. I didn't use a number because I don't have a number in my head that someone should classify themselves as older. I do think that there's a lot of people that are worried. I don't know. I can't speak to the study. I think there's a lot of people that are worried. I know in our Syrian community, we had virtually no shidduch crisis 15 years ago. And I don't want to call it a crisis. I don't like.
What is it now? Like what defines the crisis?
But right now, we do have girls that are older that have parents that are pulling their hair out and don't understand why their daughter has classmates that have 3 or 4 kids and they don't. There is a lot of that. Now, is it possible that there's a lot of that because we're just hearing about it more because with our phones and texts and WhatsApps we're able to hear more about these things, so we're all more interconnected to more people? It is possible. Do I think that our Jewish media likes to turn things into crises? Yeah, I think it does. And the reason why it does is very simple.
It sells.
In the end, if you're going to have the New York Post, that you have sports stories, you have gossip stories, you have immoral stories.
Politics.
Those are your top stories. If you're a From magazine or newspaper, the top stories you can't put into your magazine. So now you have to try to, build up a story that you don't have half of the juice that the Goyish world is using. You can't use 3/4 of the juice. Most, if you take, I'm not telling anyone should ever look at the cover of New York Post, but you took the cover of New York Post and took 365 days of the year, how many of those covered topics, forget the picture, covered topics are worthy of a From magazine? The answer is probably less than 5. Maybe when Trump won.
But I don't think you're excusing.
I'm not excusing. I'm saying so because of that, if you want to sell papers, so to speak, you want to sell newspapers, and you want to make it exciting, you kind of have to find issues that the people are dealing with. And by finding issues, they're not deliberately trying to do it.
I don't think they're deliberately trying to do it, but they're doing it.
You now all of a sudden turn it into a little bit more of an issue. So there's no one, I give speeches, I talk about different issues, and sometimes I walk away, I say, did I make that a big issue than it is? I don't know. It's on people's minds to begin with, so I'm trying to talk to what's on people's mind, but I do make it more as I'm talking about it.
I open up sometimes a Jewish magazine and I'll read an article and I'm like, oh my God, if I was a single girl or boy right now, I would be crying. I'd be so scared. A story about a girl who got married and then her mother-in-law wasn't really her mother-in-law. It was someone from some crazy.
There's definitely too many of those stories out there. I agree. There are definitely too many of those stories.
I think it's fear mongering. We're creating a fear that's like, Hashem's like, I didn't do this.
Again, I do think we have a challenge, and to prove that we have a challenge, is Gedolim are working on this, morning or night, Michael Herschel, we hear about it
Yeah.
ongoing, that Gedolim are trying to come up with different solutions, because there is a sense that there's a numbers gap between the ages and stuff like that. Again, I'm not an expert in it.
Right.
I just know and feel what's on the ground. It is big, is the fear that's created by calling it a crisis, by putting it in magazines. Is that adding to it? It's definitely adding to it. But do we have a challenge? I think we have a challenge.
Right. No, 100. I don't want to at all downplay the struggle that someone's going through. No matter what age they are in shidduchim, it's real, and the struggle is it's unfortunate that this is people's. Getting married is the most exciting. It's supposed to be the most exciting part of your life, and people are pulling out their hair through this whole process, and it's awful. It's not. It's not
again,
ideal.
it is a shame. Also, when I see, some of my sibling nieces, or whatever, just got engaged, like, it's just like, you're gonna have companionship hopefully for the rest of your life. Like, there's nothing nicer, and it literally, it rips my heart out when you see a girl or a boy who's struggling in this process. It's like, it's such a shame, because like, everyone deserves a partner. Everyone deserves to be able to spend their life, to share things with someone. And when they don't have that, it is a shame. It is frustrating. Right. But there definitely are families that have 2, 3, 4 kids that are marriageable age, and it's.
No, we see it. Definitely.
It's rough.
We definitely see that.
We'll be right back. This episode, quick word from my friends at NRS Pay. Credit card processing is something that many of us need. If you're a business owner, you need a credit card processor, because gone are the days where you can say, we only take cash. Those people that still exist? Yeah, you don't shop there, right? They only take cash. What's up with that? That's shady. Well, you know what also sometimes shady? Some credit card processors can be shady. Getting hit with hidden fees, some percentages. You're like, wait a minute, what is that? Yeah, well, not NRS Pay. NRS Pay, part of a publicly traded company, IDT Corporation, which I'm sure you guys know about. They are an honest credit card processor, ones that you don't need to be worried about being robbed. Their hands ain't in your pockets. Their hand is on your back. And they're saying, we got you covered. We got you covered. No hidden fees, no long-term contracts. They're not trying to hop you. They're trying to make business better and easier for you, the business owner. They also have something called NRS funding. You need $2,500 or you need $500,000. They can fund your business. So head to nrspay.com. That is nrspay.com. They are the incredible credit card processing company. They can take care of funding for you. But most of all, they are an honest company. They are good people to work with. And when it comes to business, that's all you can ask for. nrspay.com. Quick word for my friends at Town Appliance. Some of you have messaged me. Yeah, you, Ari. I know you messaged me. You're like, I was dreaming about a Weber grill because your ad read last week. Well, let me tell you something. That wasn't an ad read. That's a way of life. I actually sometimes dream of Weber grills, but not just any Weber grill, a Weber grill that I get on townappliance.com, because that's the place where you get at the best price. Summer savings are beginning. The grill season is kicking off, and you want to make sure you are covered. Yeah, that grill's that's been sitting in your backyard since 2007. The food that you're making isn't bad. I think it's the grill. You're Craig. You're Jewish. You're a chef. You know how to smoke meat. You live in Tom's River. Of course, you know how to smoke meat. Well, maybe it's the grill. Blame the equipment. So go to townappliance.com. Get the perfect equipment that you need, whether it's inside your kitchen, whether you're doing a new construction, or you're just trying to get a new outdoor situation. Maybe some furniture, maybe a grill, maybe some kitchen appliances. The food ain't bad. The grill is. Get a new one. Townappliance.com.
Chizuk that you'd give to someone who's listening to this that finds themselves at an age that they consider, my friends are married right now and they are struggling with that. What chizuk would you give to them?
I would say a couple of things. Number one is, don't judge yourself based on it. Just like I told you before, that if someone doesn't have the income that another person has, it's Hashem who decided. A lot of girls start to now view themselves, I must be the worst. The world must hate me. I must not be marriageable. Hashem must hate me. All of those things are complete lies. Hashem decided He wants you to wait. I don't know why He decided He wants you to wait, but Hashem decided He wants you to wait. Don't at all interpret it into more. I love giving this example. I'm sure many years ago, there was this woman, and she lived in a town, and the king made a party. And I'm sure she prayed every day and davened every day, please end the party, please Hashem, end the party. And it lasted 1 month and 2 months and 3 months and 4 months and 5 months and 6 months. And finally, after 6 months, the party was over. She's like, oh, finally, Hashem, He answered my prayers. And then next thing you know, there was another party. And I'm sure she said to herself, Hashem, this king is crazy. Don't let him do anything nuts. And next thing you know, by the end of the party, he killed his wife. And I'm sure this girl, I don't know for sure, it doesn't say anywhere, I'm sure this girl was praying in the house. He said, davening, Hashem, please don't let this king collect girls. Oh, he's going to collect girls. Please don't let him come to me. And next thing you know, she's being pulled to the palace. And she's like, Hashem, he has so many thousands of options. Please don't let him pick me. And for a year, she probably davened, let me go home, let me go home, let me go home. And then she wasn't allowed to go home. And then it was her turn. And out of a few thousand girls, the king picked her. I'm sure she was davening and said, Hashem, why me? And by this point, you know what I'm talking about, Esther Malka. Hashem had a plan for her. And that plan included not exactly doing what you're asking me to do right now. And every girl who's single has to do is don't judge yourself. Trust me. I'm in this sugya. We guide girls. A lot of them. The ones that are married are not any better than the ones that are not. They're just not better. It's the same thing. They just found one guy who married them. Doesn't say anything about you that you married. A lot of times girls walk around like they got married, like they think they walk on water. You just have one guy. Doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have a person because there's something weak about you, so you found a weak match. And I'm not as weak as you, so I couldn't find the weak match. And sometimes it's even it's a negative point. Just don't ever judge. Just like I told you, when you walk into the room, we're all serving kugel, just no matter which kugel. When you're married or not married, it's the same thing. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself whether you're married or not. That's number one. Number two is for us, some girls, it gets very hard. And it gets very lonely and very difficult. And I want to say this the right way because I'm not saying it's okay. But if you mess up and you do some things you shouldn't do, don't get over down on yourself. You might say, oh, Rabbi Haber was talking about if I was as squeaky perfect and pure as when I graduated high school. But now I'm not as pure because I do different things to spend my time and to kill time or to get past the time. And they're not exactly on the level I used to be. I'm not saying it's okay. It is not okay. If it's usser, it's usser. Or if it's not appropriate for you, it's not appropriate for you. But you're struggling right now. And don't judge yourself from your struggle.
Right.
Mitzvah Shem, you're going to get out of it, and this is not you. So I'm not saying it's okay at all, but I'm saying don't define yourself by the things you do or say or feel or hear or watch or whatever. Don't judge yourself by that, what you're doing in your weakest moment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's okay, but it doesn't mean that Hashem hates you. Because hell, he's made me wait so long and I'm such a bad person. That's not the case.
Right. No, that's beautiful. And what you said about Esther Malka, the same could be said about Yosef Atzadik and his journey,
Exactly.
and parents who have kids who are on a different journey and struggle and
Exactly.
where you're there, where you're
I'm
supposed
sure
to be.
they all davened for it not to be this way.
Yeah.
I'm sure Yaakov davened for 20 years for his son to come home.
And for his other
for his
sons
son to
not
be
to
alive.
sell
Exactly.
their other
I'm sure he
son. Yeah.
davened for his sons to get along. Hashem sometimes wants the thing to be so. It says nothing about you. It's very important that you realize it says nothing about you and that you have to try as best you can to remind yourself you're wonderful, you're great, you're boss me. Oh, but I'm not great because I'm not even doing anything. I'm sitting home all night. I'm wasting my time. I'm listening to things or doing things I shouldn't even be doing. Again, mistake. You shouldn't be doing it. But don't judge yourself what you do in your worst moment.
Right. And I know somebody who recently received a phone call. They're not a shachem, but they deal with shidduchim. They recently received a phone call from a girl crying how all her friends are getting married, and she feels just like this overwhelming feeling of anxiety and fear. Is it gonna ever happen? And I was listening. I said, that's so sad. Unfortunately, a lot of people are dealing with this. She said, yeah, but this girl just turned 19. And
I once had that. Like I told you, we have an organization for girls, whatever. And one of the girls wanted to ask me a question, and she was hysterical crying. She was 18. Like she had everything, you're good, everything's good. She's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
This is where the fear and the media comes in. That we've called it a crisis and created an anxiety that for some girls starts in high school, and that is a shame.
Yeah. You're still in the childhood.
That is a shame.
How do you stop that?
You start that by trying the best you can to maybe avoid some of this being talked about in your house and being talked about by your friends. Maybe you don't bring as much of that media, those magazines into your house if you find that your kids it's getting to them. Maybe you don't, maybe you don't allow these conversations to go on. You also keep an optimistic and see how much great is happening. There's any place that has wedding halls, they're jammed every night.
Right.
People are getting married. And people have to constantly remember, we're talking about no one's getting married. I don't know how many halls does Lakewood have? 6? They're jammed every single night that's available for a wedding, all 6 of them. You know what I'm saying? We have in our community, we have 2 or 3 halls. They're full every single night. That's
sometimes 2 in a night.
What?
Sometimes 2 in a night.
Yeah, that's right, in Lakewood. So the point is like, don't overrate this. You know, it might be that there's a percentage that go a long time without getting married, but there's a very strong percentage that gets married. And there has to, as best you can, there has to be an optimism, there has to be a belief, there has to be a certain conviction and strength. I don't know if I could say this, but I don't want to say this story. It's personal to someone in my family. I don't think they want me to say it.
That's
cut it out.
You know, no, I'm not gonna cut that out.
Okay.
That's beautiful. It's you.
But someone that I know
great,
had a situation that I thought, I'll say this much, that I used to wonder if they're ever gonna have a possibility of getting married. And like, it pretty much is a miracle.
Yeah.
That Hashem sent the boy and they're engaged. And it's unbelievable. And like, I can't believe it because there were certain statistics in the situation that would make it harder. I don't want to be too descriptive.
Yeah.
And Hashem, but you know what? Hashem really runs the world. Everything is a miracle. I don't mean everything is a miracle in some like, overstated way. I just mean people's income is a miracle. People who get married is a miracle. People who, our kids on the right. There's a lot of miracles. So you have to turn to Hashem. And sometimes, I would say this one other point. Sometimes, you have to do a lot of ishtadlus, obviously. But sometimes you have to give up. And you have to say, okay, Hashem, the proper ishtadlus, I believe, is A, B, and C. I did A, B, and C to the max. Now, I'm giving it up completely to you. Sometimes Hashem wants that from us. So we have to just say, Hashem, I'm powerless. It's all you. And so if you're feeling that, don't like give up on yourself. Give it up to Hashem. Say, Hashem, here's the package. I have no idea what to do next. I'm sure you do. And please make something next happen. And when that tefillah, that comes from a person who tried their hardest, but is completely giving it up and saying, Hashem, I know I am powerless to you. Even though I did ishtadlus, I have no confidence, I have no belief in ishtadlus. I just believe in you. That is a very powerful position, a powerful tefillah to have.
It's amazing. That's beautiful. We're going to move on. We're going to take the questions that people sent in. Maybe some of them will have to do about Shalom Bayis, maybe not, but maybe we'll do a part 2 one day about Shalom Bayis if need be.
Okay.
If you're listening up until now for Shalom Bayis, then we'll hopefully touch upon it a little bit. I want to mention one more thing that I heard about, just to close with the shidduch talk for a second, about this survey that they did. And I think they had several thousand people answer it from different communities, and that's how they made up this polling, is that most shidduchim made are not from the occupation of a shadchan, and shadchanim are amazing. There are incredible shadchanim out there, and they're doing so much good. And if you are the other 80%, make shidduchim. Rabbi Kalish told me that anytime he has a new boy in his yeshiva that's engaged, he goes to the Kollel, and the boy and the husband and wife say, make shidduchim, make shidduchim. Most shidduchim are made from friends and family.
It's really true because it's again, the shadchanim are doing an unbelievable job, and it's very hard. And some people are frustrated with shadchanim. There are people, as I said these words, the shadchanim do an unbelievable job. There are some people out there saying, really? You want to know what the idea? You know how many months my daughter went without a call? You want to know the dumb ideas that I got from the shidduchim? So I understand your pain. I think they're trying. I don't think they have any sinister intent. They're trying. But the one limitation most shadchanim have is they don't know you personally. And a match is really a recipe. So to say the person is learning and he's this height and he comes from this kind of family and she wants learning and she's this height and she comes from that kind of family, does not say anything about whether it's a match or not.
Right.
So, but knowing the people is what gives you the sense that it's a match. So that's why a lot of times young couples are in the best position, because this girl knows girls and the boy knows boys. So if the two of us are compatible, there's a decent chance that one of my friends could be compatible to one of your friends. So they definitely should and try, and it's worth it. And even if you give a person a shot and even you throw the ideas out there, it doesn't mean that that's for sure going to work, but you're giving a person hope. Even if they go on a date and it doesn't work, there's hope. It's worth it. You don't have to be an expert. If you just have a sense that this could work, that's all you need is give it a try.
Right. No, I love that. So now getting to this next segment for the Meaningful Minute Plus members, and
we covered money.
We covered shidduchim, and now
we're going to questions.
Now we're going to try to do these as rapid fire as possible, because
You want my answers to be like 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, we could try. I mean,
Okay,
obviously,
go.
okay, so this is a big topic that I got a few questions on.
Okay.
It's asked in a few different ways. I'm trying to find the best way to ask it, but I'll sum it up. This asks it very nicely. Why are the Gedalim in the U.S. not encouraging Aliyah? Not on a personal level, but on a communal level. You shouldn't make any decisions based off of a fear that your kid is going off the derech. I don't know the second part of that question, but there's a few questions that were asked about specifically Aliyah, and that it's not being pushed enough by Rabbanim in America and in Yeshiva Welt, that it's not given as a value, Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. And I think this is a feeling felt by, I know, people who made Aliyah, that it's not being told, it's not being spoken about. I don't say it's being discouraged, but it's not being encouraged.
There's obviously a lot that goes into it in terms of different people's position about Israel, the state. I don't want to get into that. The simple concept of Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael, there are some people who, not some people, most people would say, if you're doing well somewhere, it's not so simple to uproot. So you might say, don't worry about my kids going off the derech, but if I have a job and I have a system and I have a role and I have an importance and I have what my routine is, it is not so easy to just get up and change that routine and to just, remove communities and take people from different places and put them in other places where they don't fit. They have neighborhoods, they have shuls, they have things like that. It's not so simple to do. That's the simple answer.
Okay.
You said 30 seconds.
No, I get it. I think something that comes to mind by the recent, I believe it's a Aguda convention. There was a panel of Rabbanim, and one of the rabbis on the panel said that there's a halacha that if you're passing a shul and it's raining outside, you're not allowed to go in the shul because you're not allowed to use a shul as refuge. Something along those lines.
That's true.
And people moving to Eretz Yisrael now because of the fear of anti-Semitism in America, it's not a good thing. That was sort of the parallel drawn.
So I don't think it's a fair comment. I don't know who the Rav was. I don't want to knock the comment, but I don't think it's a fair parallel because it's not that they're going there for refuge. Right now, Israel is not the simplest, easiest place to live either.
It never
so
has
they're not
been,
going for refuge. They're going because they feel like, this is just a reminder of where I belong. And that's why they go.
Is it where everyone, meaning,
I'm saying
not everyone could do it. Not everyone could do it.
But a Jew belongs to Eretz Yisrael. So in their mind, some people who they're comfortable there. Once they get a little uncomfortable, it's not like, oh, let me go there, it'll be comfortable. It's like, oh, let me realize that this is not where I belong, and that is where I belong. And that's all they're using as inspiration. They're not using it as a fleeing for safety.
Right. Meaning it's almost similar to the Kollel conversation about should everyone go? Not everyone could, but should everyone want to? Is the A+ ideal in a perfect world for everyone to live in Eretz Yisrael?
I think Jewish people belong in Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says if you're outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's like you don't have a God. But I think if a person is capable and if it fits for them, then it makes sense for them to be there. The Abiyud Eretz Yisrael Machkim, like this Torah Eretz Yisrael, there's no denying that Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. But I don't think we have to now all of a sudden, with communities that are struggling with all these issues that we're talking about, we now all of a sudden have to say, everyone get up and get out. That's my
and the whole conversation about the 4/5 that didn't go in times of Mitzrayim, and now it's
I don't think I think the 4/5 are the people that are
not religious,
Jews.
right?
I don't think that they're from Torah Jews who just don't feel ready to move to Eretz Yisrael.
Fair, okay.
Because I'm not judging the Gedalim of America. I'm just saying that they're included in the 4/5. I'm not going.
Right. Okay.
Next
question. I'm married 2 years and I feel like life became kind of regular. Any way to somewhat reignite the spark I felt when we were first married?
Okay, so I like that question, but it's not a 30-second answer.
60?
60. I would say two things, and 30 seconds each. First thing is spend time. So when I was just sitting with a therapist that I was speaking to a bunch of Rabbanim, he and I were presenting. He says, spend time on the relationship. That means a lot of times we date spending time on the relationship. And then once we get married, we're in a business event. We're in a business partnership. No, still spend time on the relationship. Whether it's out or in the house or at night or whatever, however works for you, playing a game, spend time on building a relationship. It could be sharing different Torah, whatever works for you, but spending time in the relationship. That's number one. And number two is I would say the greatest satisfaction in marriage comes from, and this is a whole share in itself, it comes from a spouse that understands me. And if you want to create a real energy, spend time and energy showing your spouse how much you understand what they're feeling and what they're dealing with. And when you show an understanding, your spouse will hopefully try to show an understanding back. And when two people deeply understand each other's struggles, defeats and victories and insecurities and strangeness and all that, they understand each other really well. Usually there's a lot of joy in that.
Okay. Beautiful. People sent a lot of good questions. This is interesting. What is the hardest conversation you ever had to have with a student?
The hardest conversation I ever had to have with a student. I would say, I don't remember any conversation that was particularly hard in that way. I would say it's making a student realize that a weakness that they have. Like sometimes you need to just step up and realize you're not so good at this. And it's hard, it's so annoying, but like
the whole
it's
life,
relevant in learning.
Yeah.
Like you're not so great in learning B'kiyas. So focus on Ian. It's not your thing. Or you're not getting that shidduch. Like, hi, you're not getting that shidduch. You realize the story you come from, the family you come from, you're not getting that shidduch. It doesn't make you bad. For someone else, you're an awesome shidduch. But for that person, you're not. So you're not. So making a student realize that they have a limitation while still trying to make them realize that they're incredible people. And a limitation is not a bad thing, I would say, is overall challenging type of conversation to have with a student.
Okay. Another Israel one. One of the rabbis is going to say it's finally time to go home. Seems like a lot of people wanted to talk about that. Okay, let's choose another one. I entered shidduchim world. I'm finding it really hard to put Hashem in the picture. I feel like I think I am in control of shidduchim, even though I know it's all Hashem. It's all in Hashem's hands. How do I give it over to Hashem and stop worrying when I will find my zivug?
That's great. So that's really the point we made.
Yeah.
It's almost like a question that fits specific to that point. I think you have to put in your mind the reality. And the reality is that whatever you think you do control, there are so many people who have the same control and it didn't work. And so many people have the same control that did work. So when you realize that, I sometimes will sit in another person's speech and I say, 1 second, I'm not a better speaker than that person. I don't know how Hashem just decided that people should start listening.
Yeah.
So when you realize, if you're honest with yourself, you realize that you're hopeless without Hashem. So my answer is, be honest with yourself and realize the different ways that it could go. And then you realize all you have is Hashem.
Yeah. I'm going to look at a few more here, see if a lot of them are very similar. Okay, I'll read the whole thing yet, so we'll see if it's usable. Rabbi Haber has spoken a lot about his father, alav shalom, how he believed in him and built him up. Other examples are Rabbi Bender, Charlie Rari with their mothers. What about those of us whose parents don't believe in us? They don't have the ability to build us up. How do we have any hopes for greatness?
That's a great question.
Because I'm glad we got that
parents.
one.
My father, alav shalom, and my mother were both. They're both exceptional at believing. And I would say this: at the end of the day, it's not really about them believing in you; it's about you believing in you. And you have to put yourself in a position that generates that belief. Whether it's the group you're around who believes in you, whether it's a Rebbe that you're close to, you do have to find some way for you yourself to believe. Yosef HaTzadik, we mentioned before, was stuck in a jail. Nothing in his surroundings told him he's the greatest. But you could say, the person's going to answer me, but he had in his mind a father who believed in him. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't really matter who else believes in you. It matters if that translates into you. So you have to find a way to make it translate into you. Find something that could trigger you. Find mini successes that give you belief.
Right. How do I stay strong and happy even through hard times?
With the realization that it's 100% from Hashem. You know, I love one of my favorite little stories in Tanakh is David HaMelech is running away from his son Avshalom. And I'll say it's Friday. He's running away from Avshalom, his son. And he meets a person. And this person starts cursing him and stoning him. So David HaMelech's people say, let's kill that person. How much are we going to deal with this? They literally call him a dead dog. This dead dog. Like, why are we dealing with this? David HaMelech says, you think he's talking? These are the words in the Pasuk. It's not the Pasuk says, not a Midrash. Hashem says, it says, it's Hashem talking, said David HaMelech, through that person.
Yeah.
So the point when anytime someone's going through a struggle, this is Hashem who put you here. So a lot of people therefore do the math. If Hashem put me here, it means he hates me. No, Hashem put me here. That's step one. And step two is for me to do something with this. So look at it and figure out what you could do with it.
Amazing. We're going to do one more thing. I see it over here. I didn't know I had it here, but this is the Meaningful People game that we made.
Okay.
People started buying this. It's similar to what we just did, but these are questions that were curated by my team, and it's sold in online right now on our website. It's soon in Judaikas. I'm going to send you home with this, actually. You have it. But it's really for a Shabbos table, for dates. People could, there's 125 questions.
So you're going to ask me a couple?
I'm going to ask you a couple. I don't know.
These are completely random.
These are, they're good. We'll see what.
No, say random to me.
Random to everybody.
Okay, go.
Okay. What is something you didn't think that you could do and that you did?
What I'm doing now.
Really?
I mean, just this. I mean, what I'm doing now in my life, and that's the ability to speak to these audiences and this amount of people. I never really thought that this would happen.
Is it out of like shy, stage fright?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I was fairly shy as a kid. That means for 2 years in yeshiva, and I was pretty good, I was good at learning. 2 years in yeshiva, I was afraid to raise my hand in shir because I was afraid that the question might not be a good enough question. I'd only ask the Rebbe at the shir.
Wow.
And then when I got married, my wife's grandfather wasn't so from, would say to me, Joey, my father is a rabbi. He says, your father's a rabbi, you're probably going to be a rabbi, but you mumble. You don't even speak clearly. So between being shy in Beis Medrash and then not speaking clearly, I never dreamt that talking and teaching would be my life.
That's amazing.
And I think that should be chizuk to any person.
It really
if you have a
should be.
struggle, it very often can help you get better because of the struggle.
Yeah. What is a lesson that you learned the hard way?
What is a lesson that I learned the hard way? I would say this could be dangerous to say in 2 seconds, but you have to really do it your way. You were put on this earth, you have a certain style, you have a certain capability, and you have to take advice from people. Don't just be a bull in a china shop. But you were born to do it your style. And when you do it your style, it ends up coming out. Like I have a lot of people, I tell personal stories. And I've had a lot of people in my shul, a lot of people say, telling personal stories, you make yourself look bad, you make yourself look good, you're making yourself look too good, like too bad. And I say, I don't know. It's my way of relaying the message. And it works for me. So it might not work for you. And you might have a certain thing that you do that doesn't work for me.
Right.
Being comfortable in my own skin and doing it the way that I feel comfortable doing while incorporating all the advice that I got, but still doing it my way, I think was a lesson I learned the hard way.
Last one. Does the idea of getting older scare you?
Obviously, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because like you look back and you just ask yourself, did I use each year the right way?
Right. You blink and you're not 19 anymore.
Yeah, I'm not. And in my head, sometimes I think I still am.
Me too.
Like I snack sometimes, but you're closer to 19 than I am. So
bit.
sometimes, you know, I'm snacking like I'm a kid sometimes. So I think, yeah, you just want to keep questioning yourself and say, am I using my time right? I think that's the biggest and most important question. And then on the other hand, you know, I once remember hearing a commercial on the radio when I was young and I was a kid. And someone said, it was when this disease was out there, doesn't it? Someone said, you know, one day you're going to be old, you're going to be hunched over, you're going to have eyes drooping, you're going to have saliva coming out of your mouth, you're going to need help to even get out of a chair. He says, and you're going to be insanely lucky because I have, and he names the disease that he has. You remember the disease that used to be around for people who did extreme virus, and now it's kind of not around. And he's saying, I'm not going to get to be that age. So in my mind, I look at each stage as a schus and an opportunity to be at that stage. And I just keep questioning myself and saying, am I using each year right?
Right.
And I hope that that's enough to feel good as we go from stage to stage.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad it worked out. It took a couple years to schedule this. But listen, that's the lead time, you know?
Yes, thank you. It was my pleasure to do it. It was an honor to do it.
How was the experience? It was good?
Yeah, unbelievable. And I would say
5-star review.
I hope, you know, my email is out there. So if any questions, like doing this in a question and answer form, the one thing that's a little tricky is you sort of we're
Weaving, yeah.
on time, and we're cut on time, and we're not necessarily finishing every point. If any person listens to this and has a question on something, one way or the other, they could get my email. A lot of
I'll list it in the show
Don't
notes.
list. I
shouldn't list it.
You decide. Yeah, do my voice is out there. It's not hard
Okay.
to find. I know because people from all around the world email, so I'm sure they have a way to find it. And
I probably can guess it.
yeah, it's not even so hard to guess. That's also true.
Okay.
Whatever. But long story short, if they want, that people could want to reach out and ask a question so they understand it properly. I'm happy to respond. This
Right.
really was very fun.
Yeah.
It went by much quicker than I expected. And I hope we covered the topics that we did, which was money and the whole dynamics and the struggles of it, shidduchim and the whole dynamics and the struggles and hopefully the opportunities that lie within it. And then just these bunch of different questions where people have different parts of their life.
Hashem.
And I hope it helps
ground,
people, and I hope it, if someone wants to hear more about some of these topics, they could go look at the shiurim online and things like that, or there's even call-in numbers to get them and see different things that hopefully we've delved into. I
Yeah.
hope it Hashem's helped the right way.
That's Hashem. Thank you so much, Rabbi Haber.
Thank you.
Make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below here on YouTube if you're watching to win $200 by Thursday. One of you will be the winners. Let me tell you something, guys. We are working on some crazy, crazy things, but I want you to remember these words. Meaningful Minute Plus. Meaningful Minute Plus. Don't ever forget that. Because more episodes of Meaningful People, more episodes of Story of Hope, documentaries, films, movies, live streams, all that coming your way. This has been brewing for a long time, and it is about to get to the next level. It'll be launching. Shivas B'Tam is a new movie that we are producing, that we are working around the clock for. So I'm not going to say more than that because I wasn't even supposed to say this. Just get ready. That's all I can say. Just get ready. Also, new series dropped right now on our website, Talmida X, a first-hand account from a girl who is going to seminary. And she said, you know what, guys, Meaningful Minute? I'm going to document this process anonymously. Every single week, she's writing an article about what is going on inside her head as she gets ready to get into a seminary. Is she in a seminary? Did she get in? I don't know. Is she accepted, rejected? Where is she going? What's she thinking? This, my friends, is something I'm extremely excited for you to read every single week. So head to meaningfulminute.org and you will see Talmida X every single week, a new article up there. And one more thing, you saw I was playing the Meaningful People game with Rabbi Joey Haber. Make sure to get yourself one of those right now at meaningfulminute.org/thegame, meaningfulminute.org/thegame, and you too can do that at your dinner table, at your date, at your family gathering. It's meaningfulminute.org/thegame. My friends, I'll see you next week, another episode. Leave a comment, leave a review, subscribe. Love you.